Uh, Good evening, everyone. This is yours truly, John Michael Ong Verzosa, and I'll be discussing market failure in the Philippines for the subject PHD732 or Advanced Business Economics. So for our quote of the day, no, this one is by Matt Ridley, and according to him, economists are quick to speak of market failure, and rightfully so. But a greater threat comes from government failure. So we will start with the introduction. So what is a free market? Or in Tagalog, malayang pamili. So a free market is a system in which the prices for goods and services are self-regulated by buyers and sellers negotiating in an open market. Then the laws and forces of supply and demand are free from any intervention by a government or other authority and from all forms of economic privilege, monopolies, and artificial scarcities. So most countries' economies contain elements of both free market and command economies. And last, contrary to what the name implies, huh, market failure does not describe inherent imperfections in the market economy. So, what countries have a free market economy? Actually, there's none. No? But the closest, no, pinakamalapit sa free market economy, no, the ideal state, are Singapore and Hong Kong, respectively. Whereas, according to the 2019 Economic Freedom Index, the least free are Algeria and Timor-Leste. So, what are the characteristics of free markets? So, here are the characteristics of a free market economy. There is little government intervention in the economy or laissez-faire. The word laissez-faire originated in the 18th century France under the rule of King Louis XIV. He asked the nation's physiocrats how he should support the economy, with them replying, "Leave us alone." Imagine, you're telling the king, no? "Pabayaan mo na kami. No? Leave us alone. No? Don't bother us." So instead, businesses and organizations, or sorry, shall I say, organizational groups such as chambers of commerce, are given full legislative control. Next, supply and demand drives production, the uses of resources, and sets prices. There are a wide variety of goods and services available to the consumers. All properties are privately owned by individuals or businesses. Any goods or services are voluntarily exchanged by both buyers and sellers, with the seller setting any price they consider to be appropriate. That is the key thing. The key word, that is, it must be appropriate. They cannot price too high or too low. And last but not the least, competition and self-interest work together to regulate the economy. So the question here is that, does the free market ever fail to meet the society's needs? From any standpoint or perspective, no, there's always failure. And thus, there is market failure. It exists. So now, what is market failure? I would like to know. We would like to know. And actually, I asked one of my students in economics, what is market failure? And sabi niya, no, Sir, bagsak po yung merkado. Well, it's a very simplified answer, but there are a lot more dimensions to that simple, no? But complex topic, which is market failure. So market failure is a situation defined by an inefficient distribution. No? Hindi po sapat ang distribution ng mga goods and services in which the free market system failed to satisfy what society wants. So this happens when the invisible hand doesn't work at all. Private markets do not efficiently bring out the allocation of resources. So this happens like, let's say, one region needs the products or services of another region, pero super layo nila, no? Hindi mag-connect the dots. No? So thus, merong gap dun sa items, no? Sa goods. Let's say, for example, ang mga taga Ilocos, kunwari ay nag-crave ng pili, which is all the way in Bicol region. Dulo-dulo ng Luzon. So, you can consider that as a sample of market failure. Next, private markets do not efficiently bring about. Yun nga, no? Hindi niya ma-allocate properly, hindi niya ma-distribute ng maayos yung mga goods, no? Or resources. And it's also a case wherein the free market is not Pareto efficient. So we will discuss the 4 types of market failure, and here they are. So you have the public good, the asymmetric information, monopolies, and last but not the least, our focal topic itself is the market failure. So to describe the topic itself in a nutshell, kita naman siguro, no? So a good example is market failure in housing. So here we have 6 scenarios all in one, all at once. So if there's market failure in housing, then there are information gaps between the buyer and the seller. Perhaps the buyer knows a lot more than the seller, and vice versa. And then another problem is empty housing and homelessness. Hindi po lahat kaya maka-afford, can't afford. Bumili ng, let's say, real estate, or properties, condominium units, houses, etc. Inequalities of wealth. As we all know, here in the Philippines, surprisingly enough, the kingmaker is not the elite. The kingmaker is the class class C, D, and E, or Charlie Delta Echo. Those who are somewhat in the middle class to the lower end of the spectrum of society. So the rich get richer, the poor gets poorer. And that's what's happening in our current scenario right now. Another is externalities from building homes. So externalities, we will be discussing this one in detail, but let's just give you a gist. What is externalities from building homes? So when you're building homes, then there's a lot of construction involved. And that procedure takes a lot of externalities. Let's say the cement, yung sand, even yung graba, no, or gravel, the steel itself, no, all construction materials, all if not majority, are contributing to externalities, for better or for worse. And labor immobility due to high house prices and rents. Now, it was already discussed on the previous group about the labor immobility. You cannot transition. Let's say you want to buy a new house, but due to your low salary or wages, you cannot afford to buy a new house. No? So, imbis na bumili ka ng bahay, then you might prefer rent renting na lang, no? Mag-rent ka na lang ng apartment. Also, the prices keep rising. No? The supply pretty much exceeds the demand. No? Or should I say, the demand exceeds the supply. So, tumataas yung presyo, no, ng housing natin, housing properties. Later on, it might even cause a bubble, no, housing bubble. This has been a problem not just in the Philippines, but pretty much all over the world. Chinese keep buying properties. No? They're very property savvy individuals. However, due to the pandemic, medyo ano muna, no, naghunos dili muna yung mga Chinese. Rather than buy a lot right away, no? They become more careful, and invest their money elsewhere. Ganun naman po talaga ang investing 101. So instead of buying a unit townhouse in let's say Quezon City, or buying another lot in Australia, ano muna, invest muna elsewhere. Or wag mo nang gumastos. And last but not the least, the chronic undersupply of homes creating excessive demand. So, in conjunction to this fifth box, so lagi na lang kulang ang supply ng mga homes. So, tumataas yung demand, thus the prices go up. Now, the question is poverty an externality? It's a very tricky question. Can you consider poverty as an externality? For me, poverty is considered to be a result of market failure. So when recession hits, we have already experienced this one last year. The recession hits due to the pandemic, the poverty increases because employees lose their jobs. Marami pong natanggal, marami pong na-retrench, marami na si bakasyon. Some people were laid off or fired, which results in no income or less income respectively. Depending on the outcome, is either bababa yung sweldo mo or worse, wala ka na sweldo, kasi tinanggal ka or laid off. Inequality, which is a component of market failure, can eventually lead to poverty when wealth is not distributed equally. Again, you cannot really fully distribute equally the wealth of the people, of the land. This can be remedied by a government intervention. So nag-advance topic lang tayo later. Such as by taxing the wealthy more. Pwede mo naman silang i-tax lalo. The unfortunate thing is that ipapasa lang din po nila sa iyo yung taxes. Yung sinisingil ng government sa kanila. Or incorporating subsidies for those below the poverty level. So the government is actually doing their best, regardless of the administration, to help alleviate. Hindi mo matatanggal yung paghihirap, yung poverty, but at least minimize or make it less painful. So next, what is a public good? So a public good is a good that the government provides, which is both non-excludable and non-rival use. So mamaya, we will discuss non-excludable and non-rival rules. So next, the government often seek to provide public goods when there is a market failure. But usually, government naman po talaga nagpro-provide ng public good. So what are the characteristics? No? Ito na yun. No? Non-rival rules or non-rivalry is if somebody benefits from the good, it doesn't reduce the amount available for others. No? Wala pong impact. No? Nakikinabang ka, ibig sabihin nun, hindi siya, nandyan pa rin siya, no? Constant siya whether you're using it or not. No? Let's say, yung lighthouse na yan, no? Itong lighthouse sa background ko is located in Ilocos Norte. So whether I'm in Ilocos Norte or not, it's considered a public good. No? Kahit hindi ako nakikinabang dito sa item na to. No? Another is the non-excludability. So once provided, you can stop anyone from it. Just because you're not benefiting from this lighthouse doesn't mean other people cannot benefit from it. No? And last, the problem here is the free rider problem. So ano po ba yung free rider problem? Individuals have an incentive to use the good without contributing towards costs. No? So let's say, no, merong isang Chinese national na nag-decide na lumipat ng Pilipinas, no? This lighthouse is considered a public good for that Chinese national na nag-migrate ng Pilipinas, no? And ganun din po tayo, no? Let's say nagpunta tayo ng Singapore, no? Doon tayo nagtatrabaho. So lahat ng mga public goods ng Singapore, no, whether you're contributing to the economy or not, then you can benefit from that public good. So this is where this is just a more detailed explanation, no? It's in the form of a matrix. So is in the last quadrant because it is non-rival rules and also non-excludable. No? So in short, kung non-excludable siya pero rival rules, then it's a public good. No? So you have the examples there. No? And if it's both excludable and rival rules, then it's a private. Excludable and non-rival rules is a club good. No? So let's say yun nga, yung mga cinema, private parks, no? Yung mga exclusive or satellite TV. No? Examples are as follows. You have the public parks. No? Kahit hindi ka pumunta ng Luneta, is a public good. No? Kahit yung mga nakakatira ng Mindanao, bihira lang pumunta ng Luzon, no? They can get benefit from the public good if they want to go to Luneta. No? The class can go and benefit from this public good as well. No? Another is yung street lighting. No? Yung picture sa likod ko, no, pagulo lang ako rito. Instead of street lighting, it's actually bridge lighting, but again, the road on the bridge is considered as a street, if not avenue. So, kahit hindi ka taga Maynila, then you also benefit from that, no? Kasi paano kung dumaan ka dyan, walang ilaw, diba? You will complain. So, again, it's on public property, then it's a public good. Ayan, no? May pailaw si Yorme. Now, it's a tourist destination. No? It's been used for prenups, no? Or photo shoots, or even mga taping. No? So it contributes as well to the economy. Another is the traffic lights. No? So again, we all utilize the traffic lights. Sino ba naman hindi nag-utilize, no? Unless you're getting apprehended for beating the red light, no? But still, we're utilizing the traffic lights, no? Kahit saan man lokasyon yan. Whether nandito ka sa teritoryo mo, let's say you live in Manila, or you go to Las Piñas, or you go to the provinces, no? Even sa ibang bansa, pag pumunta ka, no, you're still using the traffic lights, which is a public good. And fun fact, no, the inventor, not really inventor, but I will consider him more or less as an innovator of the traffic light is Garrett, ay lumitaw, Garrett Augustus Morgan Sr. No? So meron nang nag-design ng traffic light. However, it's manually operated. Imagine, manually operated. No? So si Augustus Morgan, siya yung nag-automate ng traffic light. No? So we're thankful to him. Imagine kung hanggang ngayon manually operated po ang ating public good, such as a traffic light. So to expound further on the public good, we have the quasi-public good. Ano naman po ang quasi-public good? So it's a sort of a hybrid between private goods and public goods. So alanganin siya. It's somewhere in the middle. No? Meet me halfway. Ika nga. They have characteristics of both. And they are partially excludable and are partially frivolous. No? Parang inulit lang niya yung definition sa itaas. So what are examples? Roads. No? Not all roads are public goods. No? Pwede kang dumaan sa skyway. No? Here in the picture, behind me is the skyway. However, there's a toll. No? Toll, bayad ka muna. Bago ka dumaan. Or pwede kang dumaan pero pagdating mo doon sa exit, you have to pay. No? Kailangan bayaran mo si toll. Okay? Another example is yung internet. No? So medyo exaggerated yung nasa background ko, but it's not only that website. No? So pay to access websites like premium content, no, or yung mga, let's say, mga Canva, may bayad po ang Canva for if you want to utilize the VIP access, or even yung Netflix, Spotify, no, internet access. No, may bayad po membership. So next is the asymmetric information, or whatever you want to call it, asymmetric, asymmetric. I'll leave it up to you. So here, it's also known as information failure. It occurs when one party possesses greater material knowledge than the other party. Ibig sabihin, kaya nga asymmetrical, no? Hindi kayo face off. Nicolas Cage, John Travolta face off. Hindi po. Lamang yung isa. Either yung isa, buyer, or yung seller. May advantage. And not just buyer and seller, no? Okay? It is seen as a desired outcome of a healthy market economy in terms of skilled labor, wherein the workers specialize in a trade becoming more productive and providing greater value to workers in other trades. So I'll give an example later. So pakita lang po natin ang scenario ni asymmetric information. As you can see, the supply demand curve shifts to the right. If it shifts to the right there, henceforth, prices rise. Tumataas po ang presyo. Kasi nga, tumataas yung demand. So yung supply curve mo, ganun pa rin. Pero yung demand mo, tumaas. So here's a good example. Yung mga life insurance, naharangan ko yung isa. Yan. Sorry. So behind me, yung mga more prevalent brands of life insurance, such as AXA, BPI, PhilAm. Actually, BPI, PhilAm, and PhilAm Life, AIA. Same lang naman yan. No? They're like sister companies. Manulife, PruLife UK, PhilAm Life, no? An AIA company. FWD is roaring. No? Dati hindi siya ganun kasikat. But now, it's gaining momentum, and the more prevalent Sun Life as well as Insular Life. Okay. So, paano nagkakaroon ng problem dito sa asymmetric information? So let's say, in our class, ako ay isang financial advisor, I don't know you. No, I mean, I might know you. You may be my friend, my classmate, a relative. No? But I don't know the complete details of your information. Sorry, health information. No? Because that is a sensitive topic. No? Data privacy. But of course, when you're applying for life insurance, then you must fill it up. No? The problem is, si seller ay nasa disadvantage. No? Kasi si buyer ang mas nakakaalam ng katawan niya. No? Alam niya yung kalagayan ng kanyang kalusugan. No? His or her health status. No? Baka mamaya siya sabi niya, ay, healthy ako, immortal ako, hindi ako mamamatay, but meron pala siyang sakit. No? Heart disease, diabetes, sakit sa bato, no? Kung ano man yun. Okay? Another thing, the asymmetric information, no? It might not be considered as asymmetric information, but you do not know what will happen in the future. No? So that's a problem with insurance as well. You might be healthy, fully healthy, so they give you the lower premium. No? Yun yung advantage kasi pag healthy ka, you get the lower premium compared to those who are sickly. No? And sad thing, no? Those who sign for insurance are already suffering from ailments. Hindi sila kumukuha ng insurance nung healthy pa sila. No? So hence, higher premium. But let's say you sign for a premium, no? Lower premium kasi bata ka pa nun. Let's say 18 years old, 19, 20. No? You're at your peak physical condition, you're healthy. But of course, 10 years, 20 years down the line, nagkakasakit po tayo. So again, that's another factor to consider for asymmetric information. Another is about uncertainty is like this, no? So isa sa mga brands na yan, no? This is just ang mga nakaalam lang ng kwento na tayo mga financial advisor, no? So nag-sign siya ng contract, no? 5 million I think. 5 to 10 million, ganun kalaki yung amount. Or maybe even bigger. No? So wala naman sakit yung tao, okay naman, no? Unfortunately, the next day namatay yung client, no? Hindi siya namatay due to health. No? Namatay siya dahil nasagasaan siya. No? So within 2 days, lugi yung company. But even so, no, minsan kahit loko-lokohin mo pa sila, the house always wins. So are you fooling them or are they fooling you? Or maybe you're just both fooling each other. Another is the professions. No? So sabi nila, no, in the past, you must either become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. No? Pero ngayon may dumadagdag na dalawa, yung IT at yung nurse. No? But professions, no, these three can command. No? You can also include architects in this one. No? So ito kasi yung problem dyan. Let's say meron akong i-consult na case. No? So meron placement fee yan, consultation fee. Hindi pa kasama yung mga hearing, no? Yung mga drafts or the legal services. No? So the longer the trial goes on, no, the more na mahirap makawala kay attorney. No? Kasi if you decided na ayaw mo nang i-avail yung services ni attorney, then back to zero ka na naman, doble yung gastos mo for a new attorney, no? For new legal counsel. Unlike sa doctor, I think it's a little bit easier, no? Sa consultations phase, no? But let's say nagpa-opera ako, no? Let's say nagpa-opera ako for surgery, no? Whatever surgery that is. Let's say ang prenesyo ni Dr. A is 300,000, no? So okay naman, no? Komportable ka. Sige, doc, 300,000. I'll undergo the surgery. Kung kailan niyo gusto. Okay, done. done deal. No? Few days later, or a month later, or a few months later, or a year later, no? May nabalitaan ka na tao, no? Who underwent the same surgery, probably halos ganun din yung scope of works, no? Scope of works is the technical term. Yung procedure, no? Operating procedure, mas mura, no? 200. No? So, kulang ka doon sa info, no? Because these are professions. Of course, they are experts in their field. No? Ano ba laban natin sa doktor? Ano ba laban natin sa abogado? Ano bang laban natin sa engineer? No? Kung magpapatayo ka ng bahay, no? So si engineer baka medyo kinukupit-kupitan ka unti-unti, no? They're doing shortcuts or they're using substandard materials, no? Lalo na kung tingin nila hindi ka marunong, no? Baka nakalagay sa specification mo is Atlanta or Imperial, ilalagay sa iyo China pipes, no? Ganun din sa mga branding, minsan meron mga recommendation ng architect, they're using substitute brands, no? Or substandard, mas malala, substandard materials. No? So that's a problem with asymmetrical information. No? Pwede ring baliktad. Ikaw naman ang may advantage. No? So let's say meron kang kaalaman sa antiques. No? Pumunta ka sa junk shop, or not really a junk shop, or yung mga parang nauuso sa US, yung mga flea markets. No? Dito kasi bihira yan. Or it's a version of ukay-ukay pero more on goods, no? Yung mga items, let's say, aparador, no? Mga unappreciated, no? So, hindi nila alam yung value, they're just trying to get rid of their stuff, no? Let's say, bumili ka ng isang aparador worth 2,000 lang, no? Basta gusto lang yung pakawalan ng store na yun. But you know the value, the real value, because let's say you're an appraiser or you deal with antiques, whatever. So you bought the item at 2,000 pesos, but you know the value is around 20,000, 30,000, or even more than that. Tapos ayusin mo pa konti, kumita ka na multiple times. No? Let's say, nabenta mo ng 50,000, binili mo ng 2,000, di tubong lugaw, 48,000 pesos agad. No? So that is a sample of informational asymmetry. Number 3, we will not delve on this further because this is for the other group, but no, let's just skim through this one. So monopoly, we all know what a monopoly is even without looking at it. No? Kahit mga bata, minsan alam nila. Unless sasabihin nila monopoly yung game. No? But monopoly is a dominant position in an industry or sector wherein one company to the point of excluding all the viable competitors. Isa ka lang. Mono. No? Isa. Monopolies are often discouraged. No? Usually, hanggat maaari, wag po tayong monopolistic or monopoly. Especially sa free market. Kaya nga po free. Tapos monopoly. They are seen as leading to price gouging and deteriorating quality. No? Kasi pag nag-iisa ka lang, wala na silang choice. No? Bibili na lang sila sa'yo, knowing na alam nila walang kwenta yung product mo or service mo, but since you're the only one providing it, then there's not really a choice. No? A good example is our electricity. No? Kahit anong mura gawin natin kay Meralco, si Meralco lang nagpro-provide ng kuryente sa area of coverage niya, no? GMA, Greater Manila Area. Huh? So wala tayong magagawa. However, monopolies of some essential services such as utilities. No? So, it's a necessary evil, no? So to speak, na nag-isa lang si Meralco. They may be encouraged or even enforced by governments. Minsan kasi, mas okay na isa lang ang provider. Like, yun nga, yung Meralco natin. Diba? Isa lang. Kasi, let's say merong gustong pumasok, no? Let's say gusto pumasok ng Veralco or Verzosa Electrical Company. Ang layo, no? Ang laki ng disadvantage ng new entrant. No? Lalo na sa infrastructure. And there might be high barriers to entry. So it's a different topic altogether, yung quarters by forces. But you get the gist. No? So they're given the advantage. And maybe even prefer ng government na isa lang ang mag-provide. No? Kasi kung dalawa yan, pwede magkaroon ng sisig. Yeah. So that's monopoly. Number 2 topic is the externalities. So ito yung pinaka-focal topic natin for today or tonight, shall I say. So externalities arise whenever the actions of one economic agent make another economic agent worse or better off. No? Pwedeng pagandahin niya o palalain. Yet the first agent neither bears the cost nor receives the benefits of doing so. No? So hindi ka nagdadala, no, ng cost or hindi ka nakikinabang din. No? So there are two types. Actually four, but each one is divided into two. So you have the positive externalities and the negative externalities. What are the differences between the two? So this one is for positive externalities. When consuming or producing a good causes a benefit to a third party. Yung negative naman, sorry for the errata, causes a cost, no? Economic burden to a third party. So ano po yung ibig sabihin yan? So let's say negative production externality is pollution. No? For now, the more prevalent type of pollution is yung air pollution, but even noise pollution can be considered as such, no? A negative production externality. So if you have watched videos on YouTube or even sa books, ang usual scenario nila is, let's say, yung steel factory. Now, steel factory is a necessary, you might say, necessary evil because people need steel to build homes. No? However, wala silang proper environmental compliance. No? Hindi sila sumusunod sa standards. So they're dumping their waste on the rivers, kunwari, no, sa rivers. No? And then some people on the rivers are affected. No? Hindi alam siguro ng bata, nag-swimming doon sa ilog, magkasakit. No? Or a bad stench, no? Horrible stench. Mabaho, no? Yung stench. So, nagkakasakit yung mga tao. No? So, it's a health risk. No? Kung mapapanood nyo Rapid Tulfo in action, there are some videos talaga na napakaraming factories na nakaka-apekto sa kalusugan ng mga tao. No? And that is, in a sense, a form of negative production externality. So ito po, no? Ang mangyayari po kasi dyan, so let's say yung price ng steel, no? You have the price of steel as the demand curve. No? Ito yung demand curve and then this one is the supply curve. So ang mangyayari, tataas yung supply. No? So S is equals to private marginal cost or PMC. No? So this one, the red line is called the social marginal cost. Ano po yung social marginal cost? It's SMC, no? Wherein SMC is equals to PMC, no? This one, plus the MD. No? So ano yung MD? Ito po yung gap between the two. No? MD is also known as the marginal damage. And of course, this one is the demand curve. So market failure due to production externalities in the steel market. So let's say a negative production externality of $100 per unit of steel produced leads to a social marginal cost that is above. So lalampas ka dun sa private marginal cost in a social optimum quantity. Yung Q2 mo. So this one, Q2. That is lower than the competitive market equilibrium quantity. Dapat dito ka lang sa Q1, to be honest. Hence, there is an overproduction. No? Napasobra ka. There's overproduction of Q1 minus Q2 with an associated deadweight loss. No? Ito po, yung triangle dyan na may shade, yan po yung tinatawag natin na deadweight loss. So the deadweight, or also known as the welfare loss triangle, always point to the optimum where MC exceeds the S. So ibig sabihin, kung saang punto, no, na yung SMC, ito yon, ay nag-exceed siya dun sa SMB, which is this one. Ito po ang ating deadweight loss triangle. So the deadweight loss is the area. Itong triangle na to. Now, another is negative consumption naman. Baliktad naman. You are consuming the good. Wala naman siyang impact pag gumawa. Let's say, gumawa ng sigarilyo. Wala namang impact. But if you consume the cigarette, if you consume the wine, then that's where the situation of negative consumption externality occurs. So, baliktad lang po. No? So here, this one is S, or the supply curve. No? S is equal to PMC, which is also equal to the SMC. But this one is the SMB. No? So ano po ba yung SMB? Balikan na lang po natin. No? And then this one is the demand curve, no? Which is equals to PMB, or private marginal cost. No? So ano po yung private marginal cost? It is the direct benefit to consumers of consuming an additional unit of a good by the consumer. No? So ano ba yung effect, no, ng pag-consume ng isang good? Yung social marginal cost naman, or SMB, no, itong pula, no? Yung pula. On the other hand, is the private marginal benefit to consumers plus any cost associated. No? Ano ba yung nararamdaman mo dyan? No? So if you smoke a cigarette, I don't smoke. No? According to research studies, we're not a medical journal or subject, your lifespan decreases by 7 minutes for every stick. No? Ganun po kalala. So the private marginal benefit to consumers plus any cost associated with the consumption of the good that are imposed on others. No? So masakit pa yan dahil meron pa yung second-hand smoke. No? So let's say sa school or sa classroom or kahit sa bahay nyo, no, you smoke a cigarette, mas malaki po ang impact ng second-hand smoke compared to the first-hand smoke. Huh? So market failure due to negative consumption externalities in the cigarette market. So let's say a negative consumption externality of 40 cents per pack. No? Isang pakete na sigarilyo consumed leads to a social marginal benefit that is below the private marginal benefit in a social optimum quantity. No? Yung Q2 natin ulit. Asan yung Q2? Ito sa kaliwa. No? That is lower than the competitive market. No? So, nauna yung Q2 ngayon, imbis na Q1 ang nauna, Q2 yung nauna. That is lower than the competitive market equilibrium quantity, also known as Q1. There is an overconsumption with an associated deadweight loss. No? Ganun pa rin po on the area ACB. Now, we're done with the negative externalities. We proceed to the positive production externalities. And here, now one of the examples of positive production externalities is the educational system. whether it's high school, basic, basic ed or BED, up to college, masters, graduate studies, doctoral, postdoc. Lahat po yan, education in itself is considered as a positive production externality. And for the positive consumption externality, you have the COVID-19 vaccination that is being done here in the Philippines. As of now, we are at least 50%, 40 to 50% vaccinated. So 30% more to go. Bago maka-achieve ng herd immunity. Now, examples of externalities during the pandemic. So magpapakita po ako ng 6 na example. Ayan. So isa-isahin natin yung 6 na types of externalities na yan. So first and foremost, you have the hand washing. Ang externalities niya is more on benefits, which is reduction of risk of infection. Pag naghuhugas tayo ng kamay, natatanggal. Hindi naman natin matatanggal fully, but at least lessen the chances of risk of infection. Kaya nga po reduction eh. Hindi po niya sinabing eradication. That's a different topic altogether. Next, social distancing. Ganun din po, benefit, reduction of risk of infection. But there's a catch. There's a cost. At yung cost na yon is supply chain disruptions. Social distancing, hindi ka basta-basta makapag-deliver, wala masyadong taong bibili ng supplies, which will lead to unemployment, which was discussed previously in the first group, by the first group. Next is yung self-quarantine. Self-quarantine with pusa. So externalities naman, so benefit muna, reduction of risk of infection, ganun pa rin. Less pollution, nadagdagan po, and protection from high-risk groups. Maiwasan mo, maapektuhan ka, or mahawaan ka ng virus. But again, there's a con, or the cost, which is slowing of business activities. Lahat ng tao nakakulong, nagsa-self-quarantine, walang transactions na nagaganap. Walang transaction, wala kita. Wala kita, wala trabaho. Wala trabaho, gutom. So, it's a domino effect. Tuloy-tuloy po yan. Next is yung wearing of face mask. So, ano naman po externalities niya? More or less benefit. May bonus pang face shield but we're just going to discuss the face mask. So, benefit is the reduction of risk of infection, less pollution, protection from other high-risk groups. With the additional visual cue to others for social distancing na pag nakitang nakamask, iwas. Siguro minsan nakakalimutan ng mga tao mag-social distancing. Just a reminder na. Diba? Oops, you're forgetting to do social distancing. Next, another externality during the pandemic is panic buying. And for this sample, it didn't really happen here in the Philippines. Pero let's just focus first on other countries. So this is the toilet paper shortage. Yan, ubos na ubos. Global toilet paper panic buying. I think this one is Singapore. So Pilipinas nun, iba naman yung naubos. Rather than tissue paper, ang nagkaubusan nun is yung alcohol. Marami nagbumili ng tissue but mas severe sa alcohol kasi tayo naman mga Pilipino, we rarely use tissue to wipe our butts. we prefer yung tubig and tabo or yung bidet. Yung mga kano kasi they're wiping their butts using tissue. And it's actually more effort. No? Mas malakas gumamit ng resources yung paggawa ng paper itself. Tissue paper, for that matter. So externalities is more on the cost. Wherein creation of short-term localized shortages driving up of prices. Ganun nga po nangyari, no? I think this topic itself happened in real life during the pandemic. No? Nagkaroon ng short-term shortages, hindi kinaya ng mga manufacturing companies na nagkaroon ng supply shock. No? Daming bumili. Nag-imbak ng alcohol, nag-imbak ng kung ano-ano, bumili ng delata, bumili ng bigas, bumili ng kung anumang items yun. My goodness. No? That's what happened. And you cannot blame people. Especially sasabihin ECQ, 90 days tayo o 60 days tayo, 30 days tayo, walang labasan ng bahay. People are more afraid to get hungry rather than to die. No? Which is an irony in itself. And last sample, pero actually marami pong nangyari during pandemic, is the private individuals donating goods or services. Remember, no, parang throwback Thursday na po si community pantry. Whatever happened to community pantry? Again, it reflects on the culture of the Filipinos na minsan ningas pugon. No? May sumulpot na community pantry such as this one, no, yung unang-una. I'm not sure if ito yung mismo yon sa Maginhawa, and then they just sprouted like mushrooms. No? Nagsulputan na parang kabute, and then nag-disappear na parang bulalakaw. No? So I guess it's in the Filipino culture, ningas pugon. No? There's no long-term sustainability. Pag nawala na yung fad, nawala na yung trend, wala na. No? Nakikiuso lang po. So externalities, there are benefits to this. Access to essential goods. No? Lalo na yung mga taong hirap sa buhay, mga naghihikahos, no? Mga pobre, lalo na yung mga natanggal sa trabaho. No? There's free food, free vegetables. I think meron mga iba, no? May mga pagkain. I'm not sure kung may meats. No? Basta ang alam ko may vegetables, even yung bread. No? Nagkaroon lang siguro ng turning point yung nag-ubos ng community pantry, if you will remember that. No? Parang medyo nag-decline afterwards. Kasi parang napapansin ng mga event organizers na inaabuso. No? And especially, another turning point is yung kay Angel Locsin, no? Nung nagpa-community pantry siya. Parang doon na-shutdown yung movement itself. So benefits, access to essential goods and services for other people, especially the marginalized. But the cost is that it crowds out government responses. No? Parang natatabunan yung gobyerno. Dapat gobyerno ang gumagawa rin ng paraan. I mean, they're blindly saying, no? Implying na inutil ang gobyerno natin. That's a different topic. But those are the costs of providing or donating goods or services. Next, what is a producer surplus? So producer surplus, is the difference between what producers are willing and able to supply a good for and the price they actually receive. No? And then higher prices provide an incentive to supply more to the market. Now, it goes two ways. No? So let's say, again, no? Yung real life scenario nito is yung face shield. When face shield first came out, magkano face shield? I think 20, 25 pesos. Nag-max out yan, mga 50 pesos. No? Yung talagang, yung hengde, no? Yung normal face shield lang, hindi pa yung high-end or yung mga matitibay na types. So, ganun po ang nangyari sa face shield. umabot siya ng 50 for the hengde lang, hengde, 45, 50. And then, nag-stabilize yung supply, no? Pumalo ng 10, pumalo ng 7, pumalo ng 6, bumaba ng 5, pumalo ulit ng 6, umakit ulit ng 10, bumaba ulit ng 6, and now, due to the IATF ban, allowing people not to use face shield, of course, bababa ang demand. No? So, demand curve shifts to the left. So, bababa po ang presyo. But, if the prices are high, it will encourage manufacturers to produce more, to supply more to the market. So, ito po yun. You have here the consumer surplus. And ito yung focal natin, which is the producer surplus. This one on the other side, on the S and the QE, is the opportunity cost. And number 4, government, businesses, and externalities. Ito na po yung last part. So what is the government's role? Ito po. In the economy, the very least in the economy. Rules and regulations, promoting competition, and regulating natural monopolies. Providing public goods. So, given na nga. Dealing with externalities. Ano ba yung mga possible solutions? More equal distributions of income. As stated in the previous topic, nagkakaroon ng problem with regards to income distribution. And last but not the least is the full payment, price stability, and economic growth of the country. So what are government solutions to externalities? So here are the remedies of the public sector. So for the governments, there are 2 classes of tools in the government's arsenal for dealing with externalities. It's either price-based measures or quantity-based measures. So yung price-based measures come in the form of price policy. So it's either corrective tax or subsidy equal to marginal damage per unit. Subsidies can help encourage behavior that can result in positive externalities. You're encouraging them. It's like a reverse tax. Imbis na sinisingil mo sila, tinutulungan mo pa sila na makaahon. On the other hand, taxation can help cut down negative behavior. So let's say yung mga steel, pag pinapenalize mo sila, then it's either they will decrease their production or they will adhere to your rulings, Kung ano man yung kautusan nila para hindi sila masaraduhan ulit, Hindi mag-shutdown yung factory. So, on the other hand, quantity regulation, government forces firms to produce the socially efficient quantity. Yun lang po ang dapat gawin. Ganito lang yung sapat na quantity na kailangan mong gawin. No need for more. Government intervention. So here are the methods for dealing the negative externalities. So ano ba yung magiging outcome nun? Overproduction of output. So overproduction leads to overallocation of resources. Yung effect ng output mo, yung resources na ginamit mo, sana nagamit para sa iba pang resources. So what are the ways to correct for both scenarios, positive and negative? Meron lang pong slight changes, but yung una is yun pa rin, private bargaining. Kung pwede mong i-internalize instead of externalities, internalities na lang, why not? They can sue liability rules and lawsuits via torts, and then tax on producers, or pwede mong kontrolin itself yung firm, government takeover, and last is market for externality rights. For positive externalities, no, baliktad naman, underproduction of output and therefore under allocation of its resources. No? So, ganun pa rin, private bargaining, then subsidy to either consumers or producers or maybe both. And also, government provisions is also possible. No? Just forgot to add this one, but a good sample is yung COVID-19 vaccine. I-expound ko lang further. No? Nakikinabang ka, nakikinabang din yung mga tao, but not in a monetary sense. No? You're just making people sick. No? And I just mentioned it because it's important for us to stay safe, no? Get ourselves vaccinated. No? We're just waiting for the booster shots actually for the majority of us. Para bumalik na po tayo sa quote-unquote new normal. And with that, thank you for listening. No? Please subscribe to my channel, Forever Zosa. And as always, walang forever, pero may Forever Zosa. Goodbye. Yun lang po. Huh? And I'm done with discussing the topic itself.